Hi team, and welcome back to our Anchor Fact series on the history of India. We are learning about a country that will be one of the most important cultures in the world you live in. India is a country that is trying to create a new identity for itself and its huge population because throughout most of its history, it was ruled or dominated by outside cultures. In modern times, the story revolves around the British Empire, which completely ruled India. But the British were not the first invaders to make a permanent mark on India. The first invaders to do that were the Muslims, starting circa 711 AD. Who were the Muslims? Why did they invade India? And what was the impact of their invasions? I say invasions because there were 4 major waves over a period of 1,000 years. Clearly, the Muslims had their eyes set on India if they worked for 1,000 years to conquer it. Originally, the Muslims were from Arabia. They were the followers of Muhammad, who is considered by Muslims to be a prophet with the final message from God for humanity. Muslims believe that Jewish people received one such message, which included the 10 Commandments, and that Christians received another message which centers around the teachings of Jesus. But that these messages are just a preparation for the final message, which was granted to Muhammad. Throughout most of their history, Muslims have taken seriously the idea that because they have the final message from God, they must spread it, including by holy war, which is called jihad. The first Muslim invasion of India, circa 711 AD, was such a jihad. Islam, the religion of Muslims, does not accept that unbelievers should be respected or left in peace. And 1,000 years of the history of India shows us how hard they tried to spread their religious message. They were partly successful, especially in the first wave. Islam became the main religion in Afghanistan next to India, where Buddhism and Hinduism were ended. One of the saddest examples of what happened was the destruction of the great statues of Buddha that were carved into the mountains of Afghanistan. They were completely destroyed. As for India, which was pretty much one culture stretching between Afghanistan in the west and all the way to Thailand in the east, the first Muslim invasion resulted in one permanent outcome. The region that became the country of Pakistan later was Islamized. This is the most important reason why the 2 main countries of South Asia today are India and Pakistan. 2 countries instead of 1. We'll return to this point in another lesson when we look at how the 2 countries were split and became enemies. India, remember, was an anarchy. It was a collection of very small kingdoms that could never unite. So its rulers could not combine forces properly to prevent this region from being conquered. Later waves of Muslim invasion also had important results. If we look at the knowable world map of cultural blocks, we see that India stands out as an important culture on its own, but is flanked by Muslim countries on either side today. We know that Pakistan was Islamized starting circa 711, but how did these other regions become Islamic? That was due to the 2nd and 3rd waves of invasion by Central Asian Islamic conquerors. Because these conquerors moved down the Ganges River Valley, they became dominant in what later became Bangladesh, where the Ganges River empties into the Indian Ocean. A remarkable symbol of this time is called the Qutb minaret. A minaret is a tower found at a Muslim church, which is called a mosque, from where the Muslim call to prayer is sung 5 times a day to command Muslim believers to engage in their required prayers. This minaret, however, has a special meaning. It was built from the material of 27 destroyed Hindu temples. It's a massive symbol of the intention of the Islamic conquerors to impose their own religion and erase the Hindu culture of India. This is not the only time or place where this kind of transformation can be seen. The most famous example of all is found in Turkey. Its main city, which used to be called Constantinople, was conquered by a different set of Muslim invaders in 1453 and renamed Istanbul. In that case, one of the largest churches in Christendom, the Hagia Sophia, was transformed into a mosque, and minarets were constructed as part of the Islamization of the city. It's hard to know how successful the Islamization of India was by the time of the fourth wave of invasion, but that one is so important that it deserves its own treatment in an upcoming lesson. Before we get to that, however, we need to understand that India was not just the target of Muslim invasions. India was part of a bigger picture that brought it to the attention of Europeans as well. India was in the center of a vast trading network extending from Japan and China in the east all the way to Europe in the west. Technically, the famous Silk Road was to the north, but that land trading route was actually less important than trade by sea. When the Great Chinese Fleet, commanded by Zheng He, was sent circa 1405, as we talked about in our Chinese History Anchor Fact series, India was one of its main stops. So not surprisingly, as the Europeans themselves began to embark on their great voyages of discovery, getting to India was a major priority. In the next lesson, we'll look at how the European circumnavigation of Africa by Portuguese navigator Vasco da Gama in 1498 is one of the most important anchor facts in all of history. See you next time.